dear Martin. So I'm going to start with chapter 20 and just get stuck straight into it. Mrs. Friedman looks so shocked to see Justice standing on her doorstep. He peeks over his shoulder to make sure there's not a ghost or something behind him. Justice? Hey, Mrs. F. Is Sarah Jane home? Sure. Come in, come in. As Mrs. F stands there with her eyes popping out of her head, Juz thinks maybe he shouldn't have just shown up with no notice. Not that he makes a conscious decision to do that. He got back to school from Martell's, hopped in his car, and let his instincts lead. This is where he ended up. I should have called, he says. I'm sorry. No, that's not it at all. Well, we've really missed you around here. They missed him? SJ's up in her room. But do you mind saying hello to Neil? He'll be thrilled to see you. Sure. Mrs. F leads him around to the living room where Mr. Friedman is kicked back in his recliner watching reruns of the Final Four. Neil, look who's here, she says. When Mr. Friedman sees Juz, he sits bolt upright. Juzzmeister! Hey, Mr. F. It's really you. Mr. Friedman jumps up to hug Juz, who winces a little from the pressure on his shoulder. How are you? We're so glad to see you, son. I can see that. The Friedmans laugh. Juz swallows. It's a little overwhelming, all this love. Sarah's in a room if you want to head up, Justice, Mrs. F says. Thank you, and thanks for the warm welcome. Promise I'll call first next time. Oh, don't be silly. Juz smiles and turns to head upstairs. Hey, Juzzmeister, if you need anything at all, I mean it. Don't hesitate to call us, all right? Mr. F says from behind him. At first, Juz recoils. If there's one thing he can't handle right now, it's pity. But as he looks over his shoulder into the faces of SJ's parents, he knows this is different. He clears his throat. Thanks so much, sir. That really means a lot to me. You betcha, kiddo. Okay, we've embarrassed ourselves enough, Mrs. F says. Go on up. As Juz climbs, he gets nervous. What if SJ isn't as cool with him dropping in as her parents were? What if she's busy? What if she's asleep? What is he even going to say to her? The door is cracked, and he can hear what sounds like NPR and Carrie Underwood playing simultaneously inside SJ's room. Typical. He knocks. Come in. She's stretched out on the bed in her bras prep lacrosse shorts and a t-shirt with an open calculus book in her lap. When she sees it's him, she sits up just like her dad did, wearing the same expression her mum had. It makes him smile. Hey, he says. Hey, She scrambles around for a second like she can't figure out what to do. Shuts the calc book, sets it aside, and swings her leg around so she's sitting on the edge of the bed. Oh. She grabs a remote from the nightstand and points it at the speakers attached to her computer on the desk. NPR and Carrie go quiet. So, you're here? Juz laughs. That's what your parents said. Oh, God, did they totally attack you? I'm so sorry. She shakes her head. You're literally all they talk about these days. I would have warned you if I'd known you were coming. Juz laughs again. It's all good. Actually, it felt pretty nice. She smiles. Want to sit? Points to the empty space beside her. He sits so close that their shoulders and legs are touching. She's warm. So, what brings you to La Casa de Friedman, Mr. McAllister? She nudges his knee with her own. He turns to look at her. You. Me? Yeah, He looks away. Well, everything okay, Juz? She touches his forearm just past his wrist, and the memory of handcuffs overwhelms him even all these months later. His eyes drop to her hands, and he feels a weight slip off his shoulders. They're chipped now, but her nails are still painted his favourite colour. Juz stands, pulls SJ up, and wraps her into a hug that lifts her off her feet. Okay, she says. He inhales a whiff of her fruity shampoo. I almost joined a gang today, he says. Huh? I almost joined a gang. He puts it down. Remember the guys I told you about from the Halloween party? You mean the ones who threatened to shoot you? Yeah, I went to see their leader. You what? Oh, I was thinking about, joining their crew. She just gapes at him. They both sit back on the bed and he tells her about visiting Quan in juvie and the sequence of events that led him to Martell's doorstep. At some point he starts crying, which he'd normally be embarrassed about, but he's not because it's the best he'd felt since before he can remember. Granted, part of feeling so good probably has to do with being wrapped in SJ's arms with his head on her shoulder. Juz has no idea when that happened. But here they are. He can imagine Manny calling him a punk for letting her hold him while he cries like a big-ass baby, but instead of making him sad, the thought makes him smile. He can also imagine Manny saying, "Took you long enough, fool." After a few minutes of silence, SJ lets him go and he sits up. Thanks for that, he smiles at her. She doesn't smile back. You okay? Justice, do you like me? Huh? SJ clasps her hands in her lap. Like, I know you're going through a lot right now. But, he says, she looks at him. I can't keep doing this to myself, Juz. What are you talking about, S? She sighs. Okay, This is the thing. I've had a crush on you since 10th grade. For real? Yes. At first, that's all it was. Didn't expect anything to come of it. But then last semester, we started talking more and spending more time together, and it like evolved. Juz doesn't know what to say. Problem is, I don't really know how to read you. Sometimes it seems like you're into me, but other times you're kind of withdrawn. Sometimes you look at me in a way that makes me want to put the world on a platter and hand it to you. But other times, you won't look at me at all. Damn, S. As much as I enjoy your friendship and company, I can't keep giving myself over to this hope will become something more. I need to know where you stand, so tell me the truth. She looks him right in the eye. Do you like me, Juz? He gulps. Oh my god, you totally don't. Huh? I didn't say. You hesitated. Juz peers down at his brown hands and sees Manny's watch. You know what? It's fine, she says. We can still be friends. Yes, I like you. She glares at him. Don't just say to shut me up, Justice. I'm not. I do like you, I swear, more than I've ever liked any girl. Why do I feel like there's a but? He sighs. Mello, right? She says. What? No. Mello and I are done. As in, never gonna happen again. So what is it? Is it me? No, it's. He looks around the room, anywhere but at her. It's complicated. She drops her chin. Just forget it. Wait, no. It's now or never, dog, Manny says in his head. Juz turns to face her fully. S, I'm sorry for confusing you. You're right. I never said how I felt because I was scared to. She fiddles with her hands and doesn't respond. Juz takes a deep breath. This is the thing, he says. My mum, well, she's not real keen on me dating girls who aren't African American. SJ draws back, and then her head cocks to one side. Really? Yup. It's been since I was little, but she's gotten more adamant about it since. He cuts off. Since the shooting, SJ says. Yeah. She sighs. But I don't care anymore, Juz says. Huh? About what she thinks. I don't care. SJ lifts an eyebrow and crosses her arms. And I'm the Easter Bunny. Juz laughs. Okay, I care, but Juz takes in her face. Sees what he'd be passing up. I can't let it stop me. He says, life is too short. She bites her lip. It drives Juz absolutely crazy. Let me make it clear right now, he says. I like you, Sarah Jane. No matter my mum's opinion, you mean a lot to me, and if you'll have me, I'd love to take you out sometime. Her eyes narrow. Like on a date? I know, numbnuts. She rolls her eyes and smiles. You've never called me Sarah Jane before. He grins. She blushes. Can't lie, it's real fun making your cheeks all red, he says. Shut up! She punches him. It makes him laugh and want to kiss her. So? What's up? We doing this? She covers her face. Will you stop making me blush? Nope. Ah! She huffs and drops her hands. You're all in? I'm all in, girl. Her eyes narrow for a second and then, okay. She smiles again. Juz shakes his head. Had to make me sweat for it, huh? Just returning the favour. Touche. A beat passes, and then, can I tell you something, she says. You mean there's more? Shut up. This is serious. Okay. And now he's nervous. She takes a really deep breath and shifts her gaze across the room. Seeing you with all those tubes in your body was probably the lowest moment of my life, Juz. To think I spent all that time being stupid, then almost lost you? She shakes her head. I felt the same way when I saw you at the funeral. Silence. Then, Justice? Yes, Sarah Jane. Can we agree not to be that stupid again? He smiles and drapes an arm around her shoulders. Sounds like a plan to me. Transcript from Nightly News, May 21. Anchor. Good evening and welcome to Channel 2 Nightly News. In our top story tonight, investigators say a fire at the home of former Atlanta police officer Garrett Tyson was deliberately set. Investigator. Arson was our initial suspicion due to the number of threatening phone calls and letters Mrs. Tyson has received during her husband's detainment. We're now able to confirm that this fire was started from the outside. Cuts to picture of house's charred remains. Anchor. Police have apprehended 3 teenage boys who were seen in the area on the night of the incident. Beverly Tyson, Garrett's wife, sustained multiple second-degree burns, leaving her in serious condition. Tyson's trial is connection with the January shooting that left 1 teenager dead and another wounded is set to begin approximately 5 weeks from today. More on this story as it continues to develop. Okay, so we've got chapter 20 and just that little news report there. So obviously the main part of chapter 20 was the reuniting of SJ and Juz, connecting their friendship and turning it into a relationship. There's obviously the strong undertones that he's ignoring his mother's plea to only date girls who are African American. We obviously then also had the news report about the fire at Garrett Tyson's house. Not a whole lot going on in terms of development, but obviously just that secondary or that subplot of SJ and Juz getting together. I think I'm going to stop. Well, where we are. We'll read chapter 21 in this, and I'll do a second video for the last part of the book. All right, chapter 21. For the most part, Juz isn't surprised when a pair of cops approach him and Mama after Bryce Prep's commencement ceremony. Since Blake's "Justice assaulted me" stunt fell flat, even the pundits were smart enough to ignore a kid photographed in a KKK robe. Juz figured it was only a matter of time before he got accused of something else. And he was right. Not 12 hours after news broke that the fire at Garrett Tyson's house was set by someone outside it, the same news people who instigated Thuggate were speculating about Justice's involvement in the arson plot. Despite having nothing to do with it, for 4 days now he's been waiting for someone, cop, reporter, angry mob, to come after him. Just sucks that he's still in his cap and gown surrounded by his classmates and their families, when someone does. Justice McAllister? The female of the pair says. She's black, slacks and a button-down, badge on her belt. Yes. I'm Detective Rosalind Douglas, and this is Officer Troy. She points to the white guy in uniform. You mind if we ask you a few questions? Mama steps forward and crosses her arms. I'm his mother, and he's a minor. What can I do for you, officers? We mean your son no harm, ma'am, says Officer Troy. We just have a few I don't give my consent. Detective, ma'am, your son is 17 years of age and therefore an adult according to Georgia criminal law. My son isn't a criminal, so that law doesn't apply to him. The detective sighs and looks around, taking a step forward and lowering her voice. Ma'am, we know this is a big day for your son. We're trying not to make a scene here. If he's willing to cooperate and answer a few questions for us, we might be able to avoid this going any further than it has to. So let me guess, Mama says. You're a good cop and Whitey over there is bad? Ma, stop, Juz says. Let's just hear them out so we can leave. Do you officers have any idea of the kind of hell my boy's been through at the hands of people like you? He's been falsely accused and unlawfully held under arrest. He's lost his best friend. He's been shot. Detective, we're well aware of his son's background, Ms. McAllister. Our goal is to make this as painless as possible. Juz, what's this about? Mama, I did not say you could talk to these people, Justice. Ma, if they want to treat me like an adult, I'm going to act like one. She doesn't say anything. Juz steps around her and looks each cop in the eye. You were saying, officers. The detective nods as the white cop pulls out a notepad. We appreciate your cooperation, Mr. McAllister. Justice almost laughs. Detective, on the night of May 20th, there was a fire at the home of Garrett and Beverly Tyson. The blaze was started at around 11:45 p.m. You know anything about that? Juz shrugs. Only what I've seen on the news. The detective's eyes narrow, and Justice wonders if he's being too nonchalant. He's telling the truth, of course, but they obviously don't know that. Detective Douglas examines Justice's face, which makes him feel like a cockroach under a magnifying glass. Will you excuse us for a moment, she says, gesturing to the officer. Sure. The moment they step away, Mama rounds on Juz. I don't appreciate you speaking to me that way in front of those police officers. You should have let me handle it. No offense, but I don't think this is something you can handle, Mama. Well, if you would have kept your mouth shut. You realise once they said I don't need your consent, refusing to talk would have made it look like I had something to hide, right? I turn 18 in 3 weeks and head to college in 10. You can't protect me forever. Mama's jaw drops, but before she has a chance to respond, the cops come back. Okay, Justice, the detective says. So he's Justice now, huh? This is the deal. We arrested 3 young men caught on camera siphoning gasoline from cars in a Walmart parking lot near the Tyson home. 2 of them. Officer Troy passes her the notepad. Trey Philly and Bradley Mathers. She reads, named you as an accomplice. Juz shakes his head. Of course it was Black Jihad. Juz can't believe he considered joining up with those fools. I promise I had nothing to do with it, detective. She nods. Well, we're hesitant to believe these guys. For one, they've both tried to implicate innocent parties before. For 2, the 3rd young man did not mention you, which, considering the circumstances, is a little odd. Okay. I'm going to ask you a series of yes or no questions. Just answer truthfully and this should go pretty fast. Juz nods. Were you aware of an arson plot involving the home of Garrett Tyson? No. Have you ever had any contact with Trey Philly or Bradley Mathers in the past 2 months? Yes. Mama gasps. Juz is sure she knows both of those clowns by name and the cops exchange another glance. How many times have you had contact with either of these boys in the past 2 months? Once. And what was the nature of this contact? Justice gulps. I went to meet someone, and they were there. Who were you meeting? If they're not connected to the arson, does it matter? Mama cuts in. The detective clears her throat. Juz is so relieved he could kiss Mama. Detective Douglas continues, did you have any contact with either Trey Philly or Bradley Mathers on the night of May 20th? Absolutely not. Haven't seen or spoken to either of those guys since April 20th. Officer Troy's eyebrows raised. That's pretty specific. It was a pretty memorable day. Well, what was memorable about it? Detective Douglas asks. Something unrelated to what we're talking about. Giles can feel Mama's gaze burning into him. Where were you on the night of May 20th? The detective goes on. I can assure you it wasn't anywhere near those guys or that fire. Is there someone who can verify your whereabouts? Yeah, I can, Mama says. He was with me. Giles could leave it at that. He knows he could. Yes, he could tell the cops are suspicious, but he knows that to dig deeper, they would need a warrant. But lying to the police after everything he's been through? Nah. You're getting confused, Ma. I wasn't with you. We went to visit Daddy's grave on the 21st, not the 20th. And this is true. But on May 20th, I was at my girlfriend's house. We were celebrating her parents' 20th wedding anniversary. Mama says nothing. I see, Detective Douglas says. Would your girlfriend happen to be around here to verify that? Justice looks past her and the officer at the parting crowd. She would, he says. She and her mama headed right this way. Mama doesn't say a word the entire trip home. When they pull into the driveway and she tries to get out, Justice reaches over and pulls her door shut. He locks it. Oh, so you're holding me hostage now. You have something you want to say to me, Ma? I certainly don't. You sure about that? I don't have anything to say to you, Justice. Well, I have some things to say to you. That's funny. I've learned more about my son in the past 2 hours than I've known in 4 years, and now he wants to talk to me. Mama, tell me something. Did you ever plan to let your mama know about this girlfriend of yours? Ma, I can understand you not wanting to bring up your recent contact with the neighborhood gangbangers, but if you actually care about this girl, she seems to me like you would have at least mentioned. You know why I didn't tell you anything, Mama. She doesn't respond. I'm not saying keeping it from you was the right thing to do, but I knew no matter how happy I was, you would have had something negative to say. You reacted in the parking lot by frowning at Miss Friedman's hand like it was diseased. I'm not shaking no white man's hand, Justice. Not after what that other one did to you. But what does that solve, Mama? Miss Friedman and Garrett Tyson are totally different people. Mama crosses her arms and turns to the window. Giles shakes his head. All my life you've pushed me to be and do my absolute best. And that's what SJ brings out of me. Ma, she makes me better. Don't you sit over there and tell yourself that lie, Justice. It's not a lie. It certainly is. I taught you a long time ago. Only person can make you better is you. Justice grips the steering wheel. Mama, if not for her, I don't know that I would have made it through this school year. For 10 months now, people have been trying to tear me down. SJ worked harder than anybody to make sure I stayed standing. Whether you believe it or not, she brings out the best in me. When I'm with her, I want to overcome everything. I get what you're saying, son, but there are plenty of brilliant black women who can do the same. Juz sighs. She doesn't get it at all. Ma, SJ is Jewish, he says. Manny said it to him, and it's a valid point, isn't it? I know you have issues with white folks, but her parents have been through hardship too. It doesn't matter, son. You can't see Jewish in her skin colour. You tried to help that other girl and wound up in handcuffs, and her daddy is black, ain't he? If it looks white, it's white in this world. But it's not that simple. Yes, it is. You just refuse to accept it. I sent you to that school so you'd have a chance at the best education, but with this foolishness you've got your head in now, I'm wondering if that was such a good idea. So what you're saying is after a lifetime of getting picked apart because of my skin colour, I should dismiss the girl I love because of hers? Mama turns. Love? Boy, you're 17 years old. You don't know nothing about love. You were 18 when you married Daddy, and look where it got me. Juz leans back against the headrest and shuts his eyes. For a minute, neither of them say anything. Then Mama sniffles. Oh, Ma, don't cry. I'm afraid, son. This world is hard for a boy like you without the extra obstacles. That man almost killed you, Justice. And for what? What were you doing wrong? Listening to some music he didn't like? Justice doesn't respond. He can't. I know you think I'm being unreasonable, but I can't give you my blessing on this one, she says. I know you're grown and you're going to do what you want, but you're on your own here, baby. Come on, Ma. As you made clear earlier, I can't protect you forever, right? She unlocks her door and gets out of the car. And on that note, we are going to end chapter 21. So, a lot more happening in chapter 21. Obviously, we have Juz being interviewed by police. The discovery that he was talking to members of Black Jihad by his mother. We also obviously have his mother realizing he is dating SJ and she does not give her approval. There are lots of really good quotes in this chapter that I think kind of lend themselves to what is going on. And obviously, Justice really attributes his relationship to with SJ as being pivotal in him surviving the persecution, the racism, the events of the past 10 months, as he mentions. So, definitely lots of quotes, and I think we'll go over those more in class when I see you in person, hopefully sometime soon. I just don't think I've got time to sort of write all of those down. Obviously, too, I think really worth noting that in chapter 21, um, there's just a lot of tension. I guess that's probably one of the main things. And obviously, just a word, nonchalant, which is kind of like casually dismissive. Yeah, offhand. Sort of just not overly concerned with anything. I don't know if I would really describe it as cool or calm. It's more just like off the cuff. Like if you're nonchalant, you kind of like almost like apathetic. Like you don't really care about stuff. You're often it's like, oh yeah, whatever. You just make a nonchalant comment, like a casual comment that kind of has no weight or bearing. Okay, I'm going to leave that video and then I will do a separate video for the remaining chapters in the text.